that.
Yeah, I ought to have it right here. But so you'd mentioned you had 5 kids. You had 5 kids.
I do. I have girl, boy, girl, boy, ages, and they just all had birthdays. So 11, 7, just turned 5, just turned 4, and 1.5.
All yours.
All mine, yes.
Boy, that's a job.
Yeah. Well, my first one I actually adopted, but it was my wife's. She's my wife, so.
But still, you got
Yes,
5 kids. How old's the oldest one?
She's 11 years old. So,
boy,
yeah, it's a full house. Like I was saying, we're setting up. It's almost like a break coming here, just talking to adults.
Does it ever just overwhelm you?
It does at times. I mean, I wouldn't trade it for the world, but I'd be lying to say it's not. It's a difficult thing to do, but it's also the best thing I've ever done to be able to raise that many kids, and you really have a tight knit family. It's cool to see my 11-year-old helping my 5-year-old, my 5-year-old, my 4-year-old, and my 7-year-old son and my baby boy. They get along great, and my baby boy almost wants him more than me half the time. And they have that relationship you can start seeing, and it's pretty awesome to see. So.
Does that being 5, that would be you would have to have a massive scheduling at your house, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and right now, I think as they get older, it's going to get harder. Because you look at these parents that they have 2 kids, but one's going to softball, one's going to baseball, and right now we only have 2 kids are doing that. Because the 11-year-old and the 7-year-old, the only ones really that old. But I can see down the road when the 5-year-old, 4-year-old, and 1-year-old get older, we're just going to be glorified chauffeurs, is what my wife and I call.
Do you have grandparents here?
We do. So my parents live down in Ottawa, and then my wife Carly's parents, they split time between Texas, that's where my wife's from, and down in Ottawa as well. So we do have some backup, which is nice.
That helps.
Yes. Yeah. We originally moved out here, and it was just us when we first came. Now we only had 2 kids when we first came, but we kept adding to the kids. So thankfully we were able to pull the grandparents to us.
Boy, I can just imagine what a school night would be for you.
Just getting to church, today's Sunday, right? So I'm just thinking, just this morning getting to church, getting them all dressed, getting their hair done, and then somebody goes in, and today it was my 5-year-old. She goes in and grabs my wife's makeup, and then she comes out looking like a clown, and everybody else is in the car, and we got Caroline looking like a clown, so I'm like wiping it off, and you're just taking her into the class, and sorry she got into mom's makeup, but that's just kind of par for the course for us. We're always just moving and getting them. You just try to hurt them. That's
do you take them to Sunday school?
We do, yes, sir.
So that's what, 9:30?
Yeah. So we go to First Baptist, so that's 9:45 is when Sunday school starts, and so we go there for second service, and then third service we go to for the big service. So.
Boy, that's a. How many they got? 3?
They've got 3 over there. Yeah, they have an 8:15. I say I guess because I don't think we've ever made it to 8:15, and I would love to make it to 8:15. It's just never gonna happen with 5 kids.
But and even after class and time to go into the auditorium, you got to gather up everybody.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And at First Baptist, it's just a big church. They have preschool and kindergarten and stuff like that over on one side, and then the other kids on the other side. So I'll take 2 of them over to this side. My wife will take 3 to that side, and then I'm trying to find my wife to go into the big service, and so we're always, and then you're coming out with 5 kids, and you're doing a head count, and then everybody else is flowing out, so you're always pulling the kid, grabbing the kid, keeping them from running out in the street. So, but it's fun though. Like I said, I would not trade it.
Well, if you've got 2, you're busy with just 2, and you just got 3 more. Back in the years ago, people would have 10 and 11 kids.
Right. Well, my grandma is one of, I think, 15.
15.
She grew up in a 2-bedroom house out in Texas on a ranch. And with 5, we're kind of the abnormal, but you think back then that was pretty much normal. You go out to some of these farms and stuff, and there'd be 10 kids, and most of them.
Maybe they didn't have all those extracurricular activities in, like baseball, softball, football, basketball, soccer.
Right. what was like milking the cows and getting the cattle out and stuff like that. That's my grandma growing up telling me stories.
And maybe didn't even go to school past the 8th grade or something, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it was definitely a different times. I think today in our society it'd be hard to have that 15 kid family.
I wonder what the statistics are. Do those kids grow up better or smarter, or do ours grow up better or smarter?
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I think there was more common sense back then. If I had to be honest, I think back then there's probably a lot more common sense. So,
you knew wood rotted, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's very simple stuff.
Right. Well, you knew all those. You had skills. Like, and I'm an attorney, so I don't have a lot of that practical skills. My dad's a firefighter, so I'm always calling him to say, the sink's broke. What do I do? And stuff like that. But I think back in that day, like my grandparents, both my grandpas, they could fix anything. My dad could fix anything, and I think we're losing that, I guess, self-reliance ability.
They were can-do people.
Yeah.
Weren't they? I mean, they wouldn't pay to have their oil changed.
Right. They would do it themselves. Yeah, that's what.
I bet I haven't changed the oil in my car since I was 20.
Right. Yeah, I'm the same way. My dad, growing up, he would always change the oils in our cars. He taught me how to do it. I know how to do it, but it seems like in our pace of society now, it's like, well, I don't have time to go wait for the oil to come. I need to go, get it done while I'm on the phone talking. The guys can do it at, the Jiffy Lube or whatever.
You'll never teach your kids how to change oil, will you?
Probably not.
And by the
I
time,
might now just because we're talking about it.
Yeah. Or change tires, or change a flat.
Right. I still know how to do that, and I did that recently. But
and these are just things that's come to mind. We're not even talking about.
Right. Building a house
or typewriters.
Mm-hmm. Sewing. I mean, that's a lot.
Or using this phone here with the dial.
Right. Right. A lot of that we've and it's just passing away. The ability, and a lot of that stuff is just obsolete as well. So.
Yeah, what's the point now of learning to change your oil? I mean,
when you can just drive, every mile there's an oil change spot.
Yeah, $50, $80, and you get your oil changed.
Right.
And now it's all kinds of different oils. Back then it's probably just oil.
Right.
And then
right now they got the synthetic stuff and the good stuff, and
things change constantly. Somebody told me I read where the only thing constant was change.
That's true.
It's kind of an oxymoron, isn't it?
Well, death and taxes, right? That's the only constants in life.
Death and taxes, yeah. People always classify lawyers and accountants in the same thing. I guess it's because they're thinkers and that sort of stuff, right?
I guess so. I mean, it's more that, I guess, your analytical, logical side. But like I said, I don't know how that translates sometimes to practical stuff.
Do you find that a lot of the stuff that you do is I was talking earlier before you came in, stuff in somebody's business, if you're not in that business, you have no clue the hurdles that person in that business has to jump over.
So as far as the law practice,
not just that, but in anything. I mean, if you mowed lawns for a living, the ones that do that for a living, we would probably not believe all the issues that they have to deal with.
Right. I think that's true. I mean, I don't think you can understand what a person's going to until you get in their shoes, right? And I think that's true for careers. It's true for health issues. It's true for a lot of that stuff in life.
When in my business, people say, "Well, I could get a plumber to do that for this." I'm thinking, well, if you could do that, I'd do it. They're not thinking of something I hadn't thought of.
Right. Right. Well, I think anyone can, maybe not anyone, but people can do almost anything, right? I mean, I think almost anyone can become a lawyer. Especially from looking just around, there's lawyers in there that, but it's just that taking that direction with your life, and I think that's what makes life so interesting, because there's so many different fields and so many different directions that people go.
And in the law field, there's so many. Some people are just title attorneys, and some people are
there's so many avenues of law, and that's what I think sometimes people on the outside don't get, because they'll hear I'm a lawyer and they'll say, okay, let me talk to you about a divorce I'm going through and what should I do about custody issues and stuff. And I know just enough in a lot of that to be dangerous, because I learned it for the bar, almost 10 years ago now, and now I've been doing criminal law pretty much ever since. So now I'm a criminal attorney. That's what I know. That's my wheelhouse. And I've been a prosecutor, so I know the prosecution side even more than that, even more niche than that. But I know I served on our last neighborhood. I was on the HOA, and because I was an attorney, they're like, "Oh, you know everything about the HOA and about how to convict them, get somebody out and get them to do their line." I'm like, "No, I don't. That's not my specialty." But
and when you learned it in school, it's probably different. When you learn it, you have to learn all those areas for the bar.
Right, and they're always evolving, right?
So what you studied to pass the bar may not even have any relevance today in that specific area.
Right.
Because they're always changing.
Well, the laws always, they go to Nashville, just in Tennessee, the legislators go to Nashville every single year and pass new laws. So whatever they pass then trumps the last thing that you knew.
And you've got to read it.
Yeah.
Or know.
Whatever field you're in, you have to look at what did they do for this. As a prosecutor, I had to look up and say, okay, what's this crime now, and what, how many more years did they add or take away from the sentence, and things like that. So, and that's true for everything. I have a buddy in my neighborhood who's a regulatory attorney, and I don't even want to think about what they deal with. the federal regulations are hundreds of thousands of pages.
I can't even spell it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Much less know
He's
it.
the one where, if I say something on Facebook like, a typo or something, he'll say, hey, you made a typo, because that's his job, is to just
I went to this doctor one time, and he was a specialist, and I forget what I was in there for exactly, but I had hit my arm, and a little knot came up, and I said, hey, what is this? And he said, I don't know. So he wasn't a specialist in that.
Right.
I could tell him I hit my arm. But he had no clue except just what his practice was. So I figured out then that you kind of got to become your own doctor in a sense, or you can't go to a doctor that knows all the areas. It'd be like me asking you, what do you do with the neighbor that dog bites? You'd have to say, well, I don't know what they do now, but this is what they used to do.
And I agree. I think specialized knowledge is so important. That's something that I think we take for granted, even though it still exists. Like we're talking about, it still exists in attorneys. There's criminal attorneys, there's civil attorneys, there's custody attorneys, there's doctors for feet, there's doctors for heads, there's doctors for, arms. But now I think in society we just figure, everybody can be an expert at anything because we can Google it, And I think we lose that ability to really realize that there are differences and distinctions and specialties.
And we rely on these people that's not even their area. See, I was relying on that doctor to tell me what the knot was, and he had no clue, but I was looking to him for some kind of guidance. And so it was like it's almost like that book, Wisdom of Insecurities. Like we go around thinking that people are helping us and looking after us and they don't know any more than we do.
Right, I think there's some truth in that, yeah. But yeah, it's an interesting night, yeah.
That's a thought, isn't it?
Yeah.
What made you want to become an attorney instead of a fireman?
Well, interestingly enough, so actually when I got out of college at 21 years old, I went to become a firefighter. So I'm from California originally. I told you that when we came in here, and I said, don't hold it against me.
Yeah.
But my dad was a firefighter. My grandpa, his dad was a firefighter. My other grandpa was actually a police chief at Beverly Hills, which would be a pretty good job of a police officer. But I went to become a firefighter. I got hired with LA City Fire Department. I became an emergency medical technician and EMT, worked on ambulances. And then right before my start date with LA City Fire, I guess back when I was 22 years old, I was just playing a pickup game of basketball and came down wrong and just tore up my back. I shattered some of my columns back there and herniated a few discs. And so then I had a 2-year period where I kept deferring employment with the LA City Fire Department. I did physical therapy, had a back surgery that failed, and did everything, spinal decompression, everything I could. and I never got back to a physical state where I could do that job and be throwing the ladders and climbing, pulling people out of burning buildings. And from that direction, that's really what led me, obviously, and I saw that as a God thing. God taking me out from a career that I thought, that's what I want, that's what I'm going to do. My dad did, my grandpa did, and pushing me towards law. And basically what happened is, once the back injury happened, the back surgery happened, I was living back with my parents. I quit I couldn't work on the ambulance either because I couldn't lift people. And my parents said, you can't go on disability, or you need to get a job. And this was 2008, so the economy was terrible. It was when we were going through the recession.
Boy, yeah.
And so they said, you got to get a job. So I just went out door to door in my parents' neighborhood, basically knocking on businesses, small businesses, and an attorney that did disability law. She was looking for someone to work part-time for her. So she hired me, and I did that for about 6 months to a year. I was like, I can do this. This is pretty, I always like to study and things like that. And so I said, this is pretty neat. I could maybe do something like this. And I was always pretty politically minded as well. And so it felt like, okay, the economy's bad. God took me out of this job, being a firefighter, and he led me here to show me this direction. Let's take the LSAT, which is the law entrance exam, see if we can do well on that, and then go from there. I was able to take that, did well on that, and then was able to get into UCLA for law school. So it's just all kind of a...
Had you graduated from college before you went to be a firefighter?
I did, yeah. So when I first went to college, I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. I loved sports growing up, and I was good, but I was never good enough to go to the next level. So that was kind of, the dream of a young man. It's like, I'll just go watch sports, and talk about it. But going through that, I worked at AM 570, which back then was the Lakers flagship station. I worked for, with the Dodgers as well, and just in college. But you see all those guys that are sports broadcasters, they don't start out in New York or LA or at the big markets. They start out in Iowa, or not that there's anything wrong with that, but they have to work their way up. And most of those guys that get to the top, they don't really have a family life. They've been through several marriages. They don't see their kids, and I was able to see that working as an intern there and externing there at that kind of level. And I always wanted to have a family. So that's when I came out of college. I looked around and I said, what my dad did was great. And that the fire service is just a brotherhood. I mean, it's like you have another family there, and you have a lot of time to see your own family. And
you were familiar with that.
So it made sense to go for that. So
a sports broadcaster, you had to interviewing people that are basketball players and stuff.
Right. Yeah. So when I worked in LA at the Lakers flagship station, I interviewed Kobe. Met Kobe, Phil Jackson.
What was he like, Kobe?
He was pretty chill, I guess would be a good way to describe him. Just real calm, and usually what I would do with Kobe, he had a weekend call-in show with the bigger people on the radio, so I would be the one who would call and keep them on the line till they came back from commercials. So my interactions with him were pretty brief. So he was usually pretty quiet, just waiting to go on the radio with the other guys.
Was he a nice guy?
Yeah, he was pretty nice. I mean, like I said, for what it was, for someone just trying to make small talk with him for 30 seconds before, okay, here you go,
So he got killed in a helicopter?
He did, yes. Yeah.
Well, that really, he had a big following, didn't he?
He did. I mean, growing up in Los Angeles, he was definitely a hero type proportions for a lot of people.
Was he tall, real tall?
He was, so I'm 6'5", and I think he was 6'5", 6'6". So he's pretty tall.
So he was very good at what he did, right?
Yes, yeah, one of the best.
Just gifted?
Yeah, and he worked hard. He outworked anybody. I mean, there's stories of him just going to little gyms in California and LA, little back alley gyms, and just working for 10 hours a day on his shot, and on his moves and stuff. His work ethic was just ridiculous.
Have you heard that saying that if you do something 10,000 times, you become an expert? You ever heard that theory?
Yeah.
I always wondered how they came up with 10,000 times.
Maybe the guy that came up with that saying said he was done after 10. It's like, okay, that's good. I'm an expert.
I'm
done doing this. Yeah.
That would be a lot of times.
But
I guess you would be an expert.
Right. And I think that's why so many people don't ever obtain that, because they don't put in the work to get to that next level.
Or they have a problem. See, Kobe could have just come down on his back like you did. You didn't do anything wrong. It was just a freak accident, right?
Well, so much of life, I think, is, it's God directing it. And it is stuff like that, like an injury or something. Like you look at a lot of athletes, they get an injury in high school and that they're done, and everyone thought they were going to be the next whoever.
They might have been if it weren't for that one thing.
Right.
You ever wonder if we take a right or a left sometimes? I've thought of times when I thought, boy, if I'd have took a right instead of a left, I'd have really been in trouble. I mean, not just literally, but I mean, if I'd have went this way or that way, or like in 08 and 09, things were bad financially. Right. I could have bought the wrong thing and gone broke.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm a Christian, so I think everything works together. You know, I think God's in charge of everything, but a lot of it we'll never know. You know, I don't think we'll ever know, why did that happen to me? Why did that not, you know, I've had conversations with some fathers that are going through things with their children having cancer or things like that. God. And that tears me up because I see my 5 kids are healthy and I wonder, why are my kids, you know, why has God allowed my kids to not walk that path, you know, to be healthy? I don't think we'll ever know that until we get to heaven. So.
That very question has caused a lot of people to not even believe there's a God. That one question there, why is this happening to them and not me? Right. Of course, there's that book, Why Does Bad Things Happen to Good People?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Well, I think, like I said, I don't know how far you want to get into the theological areas, but I think that, you know, things happen on this earth for reasons sometimes we don't know, but everything that's happening is ordained, and everything that's happening is going to bring glory to God somehow.
That's my belief. I believe that God is in control of everything, and we just think we're in charge. Right. But somehow or another, we're supposed to try. Right. But I'm not sure if it even matters.
Well, yeah.
Maybe it's going to happen anyway.
And I think sometimes God gives you the ability to look back and see things that you thought were the worst things ever, and then see how it led you. Like I talk about my back injury. I'd be lying to say that wasn't the worst time of my life, probably. You know, I was young, I was coming out of college, on top of the world. You know, I thought, I got the fire job, I got the great career, I'm 22, I've got everything figured out, and then I just was in horrific back pain for 2 years. The economy crashed, I lost my job, you know, and then, but looking back on it, it led me to, law school to become a lawyer. It got me out of state of California. If I'd been a firefighter, I'd still be basically stuck there, you know, because I'd be on my 30-year plan to get retired. So it led me to Tennessee. I found my wife. I met her while I was at law school. She's not a lawyer, thankfully. But I met her there at law school. I would never met her. You know, my oldest daughter, like I said, I was able to adopt her. I would have never had her in my life. I wouldn't have had any of these kids. So it's pretty crazy to think, you know, that back injury that I thought was the worst thing that ever happened to me back then. Now I look back and say, you know, that ended up being, in God's way, the best thing that happened to me, because it really led me to where I am today.
Plus, your back was hurting. We forget that you were in excruciating back pain's a real problem.
For about 2 years, it was excruciating. Probably 7 to 9 out of 10 every day. Like I couldn't sleep at times. You know, and back pain is one of those things that you bend one way, it's out. You know, and it's something you can never really stretch out.
Did they put you on any pain medicines?
Thankfully, I didn't want to touch pain medicines.
Well, it's a good thing.
Yeah,
you could have been on that.
As working on an ambulance, I'd seen a lot of folks, obviously, who have used opiates and things like that, and I just didn't even want to touch it.
What'd you do with the pain?
I just pushed through it, which was tough. I mean, for 2 years, it's a lot. Constant. Chronic pain is a tough thing to deal with.
Did you have to just lay on your back most of the time?
Most of the time. Yeah, and just lay there, and I'm a sleeper usually on my belly, so it was a long 2 years.
And you're supposed to be 21 and going out and enjoying life, and you're sitting there laying on your back while all your friends are. They probably wonder why you're not going here with us, and you're thinking. And they say, oh, it's in his head. Did you ever get anybody say that?
People did, or people don't understand. You know, because at that age, most people are not going through pain like that. And so there was a lot that didn't really understand it, or they thought I was overplaying it, or, you know, it's like, just suck it up kind of, you know, thing. Yeah. And I mean, that's why until you go through something like that, you don't, you know, going through that now was great for me, because I can look at people that are going through things and have empathy for them, and, you know, kind of put myself more in their shoes. But you're right, at 22, most kids are not going through something like that that's changing their life. But
So you're laying there at 22 looking up at the ceiling saying, is this ever going to get better? How did it get better?
Just slowly over time. I mean, it never got fully better. My back's still not 100%. Most back injuries, they slowly do. They don't heal themselves all the way, but the pain gets less. Your body kind of acclimates to it and kind of moves around it. So slowly, about 2 to 3 years, the pain went down significantly. And like I said, today it's still stiff. It's always going to bug me. You know, I don't do the workouts I used to do. I don't play basketball as much as I used to. Hardly ever play basketball anymore.
Because you'd be scared that you're going to come down on it that way, right?
Right. And you can't go 100%. You know, like I don't run anymore. I do the elliptical is what I do.
It wasn't ever broke. It was just
I had like 3 or 4 discs herniated. So they slipped out and basically hit the nerve, and that causes just pain up and down your leg. And so, yeah, and that's when we had back surgery. The back surgery failed too. So like I said, it was a real rough period. But now looking back, I saw God use that to bring me here. So that's what, you know, when I try to talk to people who are going through tough times, who say, you know, and a lot of times maybe we don't see it on earth why we went through that or what the purpose was, but I believe there is a purpose to it. You know, and I try to encourage folks and say, look, this is what happened in my life. Persevere, because it's going to, you know, something is coming. There'll be a reason for it.
And you'll be glad. Usually everything that's happened to me bad, I'm like you, it ended up being a better outcome than it would have because of that thing.
Right.
And I can't really explain it.
Right. And like I said, even if it doesn't on this earth, you know, the Bible talks about there'll be rewards in heaven for people that persevere in this life. I mean, the Sermon on the Mount, Christ says that. So I think even if you don't see that reward here on earth or the change here on earth, I think you'll be rewarded for persevering.
They say, who was it that Calvin Coolidge, that famous saying Calvin Coolidge said, never, all the world's problems always have and always will be solved by persistence.
I think that is,
and
that's
and
true.
Nothing, talent nor money nor skill will ever take the place of perseverance. I think that's what it says, Calvin Coolidge.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and if that's not what it is, I agree with the sentiment.
Yeah, you know, and we got to go with that, or else we'd just cash it in, wouldn't we?
Right. Well, and I think that you have to. I mean, this life is hard. I mean, it's a tough life. It's a great life. You know, there's great things to this life, but you know, you see, getting old is a tough thing. You know, having my knee's been out for the last month. That's not an easy thing. You know, but that's part of getting old. That's part of just part of life.
You know, your height may be why your knee's out.
Yeah, when you're taller, you usually have a lot more injuries. My grandpa was 6'5", and he had, you know, from 40 on, he was pretty much had a lot of health issues as far as pain and things like that.
I'd pay $100,000 to be 5 inches taller.
Even if it came with the bad back, or
no, I'd rather have just my height with no bad back.
Yeah. If I could take that trade off, yeah.
Did you? So when you were growing up, you never thought I'm going to become a lawyer, right?
Not really. Like I said, I was such a big sports guy. I still love sports, but I'm not at all the fan I used to be. I don't have time for it, frankly, with 5 kids. But growing up, that was my whole life. Was, you know, watch the Lakers, watch the Dodgers, you know, watch UCLA, all the LA teams, because I grew up in LA, and that was my entire life was revolved around sports. And so that was and my college I did their play-by-play at the Master's College where I went to college, a small school in California. You know, so that was my whole drive was sports, all about sports. And then you get out, and like I said, you see that's not everything there is to life. You know, there's family, there's, you know, work community, there's a church community, there's things like that, and that's where I made that change. So.
Have you ever noticed these people in the Olympics that will work for years to throw the javelin or something further than anybody? You know, people putting that much effort into something just to, because if they come in second, it's not worth anything, right?
Right.
Because they threw it that much further. The wind wasn't blowing as much or something. So it's hard to put a whole lot of effort in those things.
Yeah. I mean, well, I think the beauty of sports is sometimes you do it to prove to yourself you can do it. You know, sometimes the goal isn't the gold medal as much as just that I mean, obviously the goal is always the gold medal, right? But there's also the goal of I did it. You know, I did the best I could do. You know, I've got one of my buddies from church is going to run a 100-mile race this year. That's his goal. You know, and he's this guy, he's always running. And it's like, man, you know, like even if you run that 100 miles, you're not getting a gold medal or anything, but it's to show to prove to himself that he can do it.
Let me tell you about Capstar Bank. They're located in Nashville, Hendersonville, Gallatin, Athens, Madisonville, Sweetwater, Etowah, and in Cleveland at 950 25th Street and 3855 North Ocoee Street. I've used them. I like them. Give them a try. They're no problem. I think it's important for people to try to constantly do things that are hard. I think it helps your mentalness to try to keep doing stuff that's hard, not do stuff that's easy.
Right. Well, I think it builds character too. When you're pushing yourself, regardless of what the goal is or what you're doing, it's definitely pushing you to the edge of what you can do.
I think the people that try to do stuff easy, that eventually when their brain figures out if they can stop breathing, it'll be easier, then they'll just die. So you just gotta trick yourself into thinking you gotta do it. It's gotta be done hard. You gotta keep trying.
Right. And to tag on to that, I mean, I guess it's a little bit different, but you know, a lot of the folks that I've seen when they get older, the ones that stay healthy and live to be, you know, 100, or my wife's grandpa lived late into his 90s and it's because he stayed active. You know, the guy was in his 90s and he was doing more stretches than I am, and he was doing weight stuff, and he was going to the office and managing money and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, man, I can't even manage my own finances, and he's still doing all these other things. And that's what, and then you see the other people that, you know, retire at 60, don't do anything, and then their decline is quicker. You know?
Never fail.
So
Never
fail. I think
fail.
you have to stay active, whether it's physically or mentally. I think that's a key to success in life.
Even if but you got to trick yourself into thinking there's a prize at the end.
Right.
Even if there isn't one, just come up with a prize or a reason to get there. Because if you don't have a reason to get there, why do it?
Right. Well, and I think it's always about pushing yourself too. You know, right now I'm running for office, so it's like, you know, meeting 50 people a day is great, but let's meet 100 people a day. You know, it's setting whatever you're doing, try to get it to the next level.
Yeah, you're embarking on something that you don't have to do.
That's right. Yeah.
And maybe now for the layman like me, to you know what your job is and what your position is and what you're running for. But to somebody like me, I have no clue what your job even consists of. Right. And I'm going to bet that most people don't, that are not into that thing.
Right, that's true. So, because basically there's going to be, you know, that's the hard part when you're running for a judge spot. There's 7 judges that are on the ballot, different positions. And most good people that are voters don't go to court. They don't want to go to court. You know, maybe they'll go to court over some.
They don't even know where it's at.
Right, and I'm running for a criminal court, so especially they're not going to criminal court. I'm running for criminal sessions court.
What is that? What does that mean? Criminal. I know what a criminal is. Sessions. What is sessions?
So in Tennessee, every case from the criminal side, almost every case, like 98%, if you get arrested before you go to grand jury, because some cases go to grand jury first before the person gets arrested, but most of them, you get arrested, you're going to sessions court. And in that court, you have a right to a preliminary hearing where the sessions court judge, which is what I'm running for, will say, yeah, it probably happened, and if that's the case, I'm going to send it to the grand jury, and then if the grand jury says it probably happened, then it'll go to criminal court, and you can have a trial up there.
But where does
So I'm running for this one on the front end. It's kind of the
front
ground
end,
floor of the criminal justice system.
Gatekeeper, would that be a word for it or not?
I mean, I don't know if that would be, I like to say it's the ground floor because almost every criminal case has to flow through there.
Evidence where? Is there enough evidence
yeah,
here?
is there enough evidence? And you're not having a trial. You're not guaranteed a trial there. You can have misdemeanor trials there, but you're guaranteed what's called a preliminary hearing. So basically, the officer can come in, say what happened. You know, the evidence has to be admissible, can't be hearsay and things like that. But if the judge says, okay, this probably happened, the case gets sent over to grand jury, and then it can go up for a trial at the criminal court.
Did you ever watch Night Court? Remember that sitcom Night Court?
I know what you're talking about. I don't think I ever really watched it. Yeah.
I think that's what he was. He heard it first and then decided.
And then went up.
Yeah, decided.
Yeah, it's definitely a lower court.
Yeah, lower. Yeah,
not,
but you have to. But you wear a.
You can't. Yeah, you can definitely wear a robe. The current Judge Sheridan Randolph wears a robe.
Can you choose not to wear a robe?
I think you could. I'm just going to focus on winning it and then figure out what my wardrobe is. But I think I would definitely probably keep the robe tradition because I'm thinking as a prosecutor, I was in McMinn County, Monroe County, and Polk County, and they all wear robes there too. So
I like Sheridan, don't you?
yeah, I mean
I've known him my whole life. My whole life, Sheridan Randolph. I remember when he ran for that job, and my friend Troy Dixon was his campaign manager.
okay.
And
So that would have been the first go around.
the first go around,
16
yep.
years ago. Yeah.
Yep, and he had his victory party at Earl's Restaurant. That's where I guess that's where the Gardeners is today.
Okay.
He had it at Earl's Restaurant. I never will forget. So, Sessions Court. What's your position now, currently?
So for the last 6 years, I was a prosecutor here. So I worked for the district attorney's office for Steve Crump as the elected district attorney. And basically I did everything from first degree murders to, dogs at large, where a dog gets out and causes chaos in the neighborhood. So everything in between that. I've tried probably 50 to 75 cases between sitting first chair and second chair, third chair on those. And I did that for the last 6 years.
What does that mean, first chair, second chair?
So yeah, if you have a trial, a lot of times you'll just have one attorney in there, one prosecutor. So like the last year I was the DUI guy, so most of those cases I would just try it by myself and I would be the first chair. But if it's a murder or something more complicated than a DUI or misdemeanor, you might have 2 or 3 attorneys sitting there as part of the prosecution team. So the lead attorney is called the first chair, then you got second chair, and then you can have third chair, so on. So you see like some of these big cases like, Kyle Rittenhouse, which was a big high profile case. I think they had 3 or 4 prosecutors there that were doing that.
But one was the lead. And
right, one was the lead and then they got backup.
So if you're the lead, do you sort of say, okay, this is the angle we're going to take, and kind of the manager of it, I guess?
Right. Well, yeah, here in like I said, I can only speak really for our district, but here in our district in the DA's office, when I was a part of that, the first chair meant it was your case. But you bring in the other folks, like I said, I think whenever you have like a murder trial or a child rape trial, which I've been on, you bring in other attorneys because you want to be bouncing ideas off. What do you think of this? What should we do? What order of the evidence should we present?
Don't we live in a good country that has all of these stops? I mean, policeman stops you, charges you. It has to go through a sessions court where they determine if there's enough, kind of looking over the arrest, I guess.
Is it more likely than not?
And then if he thinks it's got some validity, then he sends it to the district attorney, who has to give it to the
grand jury.
And
they have to do that same thing.
So and they are not lawyers or policemen. They're just
a room full
the
of
public.
Yeah, average people.
I could be one.
You could.
Anybody could be one.
You'd probably enjoy it.
I probably would. Yeah.
You talk it out.
And say, well, of course, that's where they get a true bill. Is that what they call it? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, do they a lot of times overrule the sessions court judge, or is it? I was on the planning commission. Generally, if the staff approved it, we were going to approve it. Is it like that, or is there a little more?
Yeah, I mean, generally, I think grand jury does indict cases. Usually, and what we tried to do when I was, and like I said, I stepped down from the DA's office to run for this judge spot. So I haven't been a DA for, I guess, about a month and a half, 2 months.
So you have no job.
Well, I'm doing part-time work right now, and I knew that I would have to quit basically to run for this a few years ago. So I've saved up a nest egg so I can be out there campaigning and meeting people and doing that.
You're all in.
I am all in. I am, and I'm definitely dedicated to what's going on and to the campaign and to trying to get this position, because I think there's a lot of changes I'd like to make.
I'll say this: I've got a good friend of mine that's an attorney and I won't say who it is, but he is all about Clay Collins.
Well, that's
so you
good.
came extremely highly recommended by this guy that I really respect. So you've got to have something going for you.
Well, I appreciate that. That's good to hear. And you know, like I said, I am all in. I quit my job as a prosecutor. I love being a prosecutor. You know, I don't think there's anything like trying a case to a jury. I don't think I'll ever have that kind of experience again. You know, but I saw some issues with that court, and you know, I've got 5 kids here, like we've been talking about here in this county. And I just want to make that court just as efficient as I can and get cases moving. And like I said, that's the ground floor of the criminal justice system. So my goal is to get stuff moving along, because it doesn't matter whether it's a misdemeanor or a murder trial. It needs to be moving towards resolution. So
not even for the benefit of hurting the bad guy, but you know, aren't we? Isn't one of our rights to a speedy trial?
Right.
And that's sort of been maybe bastardized over the years. I mean, what do they mean by speedy?
Right. Well, I think it definitely has. You know, and
let me say this: do you ever read Franz Kafka, The Trial?
Yeah.
You know, that guy. He waited that whole time for what we have. The you know, Sessions Court. They never even told him what he did wrong, did they? Remember that?
He was just always kind of in limbo and worrying about what was going to happen. And that's been probably a good decade since I read that. Actually, when I hurt my back, I read all those classics because I was on my back. So you know.
I love that book, Franz Kafka. I've got it on tape. Because I think like he does. I get it lost in my head and
right.
complicated.
The inner monologue.
Yeah, and I get things complicated thinking of all different possibilities. So I see you know, they've even got sayings now. Oh, that's Kafkaism.
Right.
It means that you're suspicious of everything.
Right.
Like the football team gets in the huddle, and I think they're talking about me. You know, and they're just calling the plays.
Yeah. Is that cop looking? Is it behind me
But
looking
now,
at me? You know, that kind of thing.
But now, in Franz Kafka, he died before he finished the book? Is that right?
I believe the book is it's not complete.
And so the guy that took it over just had him commit suicide as an ending to the book. I think I may be saying that wrong.
I think he didn't finish it. Yeah, but like I said, it was about 10 years ago when I read that, or I guess even more, because it was back when I hurt my back. I had no time to read all. So I read like Dostoevsky and, you know, talk about inner monologues and stuff. You read Crime and Punishment. That's a pretty heavy book.
Now that's interesting. You're laying on your back. You don't have nothing to do, and you're reading. Do you see you connecting these dots like you're reading Franz Kafka and what'd you call the other one?
Dostoevsky, so Crime and Punishment. Yeah.
Dostoevsky. Do you think maybe that had a subconscious direction to you becoming a lawyer and exactly what you're doing today?
I think so. I mean, I think, like I said, I was always a great student in school, but I was sports obsessed. You know, some guys are girl obsessed. I was sports obsessed.
God had to say,
yeah, and I think
get
God
that
had
out
to
of the
say,
way.
your body, you know, your physicality and stuff. I took that from you so you can focus on something else. And like I said, going through that back injury, I was reading books all the time. And I also worked as a fire dispatcher when I had my back hurt, and I switched from ambulances to got a job over there. So you're just, you know, you're sitting a lot, and I was able to read as calls are coming in and things. And so I think it definitely expanded my mental. One of the things I bought when I was out on my back was The Greatest Works of the Western World. You know, it's like a 100-volume set, and I got like the old. Nobody buys books anymore, but I got like all those old hardbound books, and they're still in my house. And I went through probably over half of them, reading everything.
Now those are the ones that they look like they're leather, but they're not, right?
Right.
Yeah.
They're real nice looking, but they were old. They were from like the early 1900s, and You got Plato and Aristotle, and I was reading all that and trying to figure that out, and stuff I don't really know why I didn't read it in college. I don't know why they don't teach you all that in college anymore. But
me and you are too much alike. We like to read this, what do you call it, like maybe the other way of thinking sort of thing.
maybe more
just,
analytic. Yeah.
Just a little bit of a, why are we thinking that way
Right.
sort of stuff.
I like philosophy. I don't read. People know that I used to read, so they always ask me, and it's like, well, now I have 5 kids. I don't read like I should be, but I do love to read philosophy and things like that, and try to figure out how the world works. But
I'm reading a book right now about this guy that hiked the Appalachian Trail, and he wrote a diary. Every night before he went to bed, he wrote a little paragraph about his day, and so I'm on day 51. And I read that every night, and there's a lot of philosophy in there that he's not telling you, he's not telling it to you, but I always read philosophy into it.
right. Well, yeah. I mean, philosophy is such a broad thing, right? It's not all Hegel and people like that. That's all like X, Y leads to this and that. A lot of it's just common sense and experience and life and putting together 2 things that happened and finding the meaning in it.
And the purpose.
Right. Which I love to do. I mean, I think maybe someday I'd love to write. I always wanted to be a writer, but like I said, then five kids came along. It's hard to write when you can't hear yourself.
I'm reading 1 page a night, and I can't hardly get to that 1 page. If you read 1 page a night in a book, you can read a 365
Can read a book a year. Yeah. I think the best thing about having kids is I've started to read to them at night. My 2 oldest, my 11-year-old, my 7-year-old. So we read, like last year, we read Lord of the Rings, all the books from The Hobbit on. We've read the Chronicles of Narnia. And
what if one goes to sleep and the other one doesn't? Where do you start back?
Yeah, they stay up. They're always on me I'm the one who has to call it quits.
Golly.
Yeah. They'll have me read to them till midnight if I didn't call it quit. So.
Boy, you are busy.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this. Do you see a Sessions Court judge as we're going to put the bad guys up, or we're going to keep the good people from, is there a philosophy behind that that a judge can bring to the table that others wouldn't? Does that make sense?
Right. Well, I mean, I just got my big signs, and they say tough on crime, and I think obviously I'll be tough on crime as a judge. I think the key to being a judge is justice and fairness.
Balancing the
balancing
scales.
it, but there are things you can do as a judge to make the system, especially Sessions Court, because it's not a trial court, right? So I think there's a different role from Sessions to trial courts. And what I mean by that is I think Sessions Court, the key is about efficiency and really getting things moving along. Because what happens a lot of times is you'll have a case sit there for a year or 2 before it goes to grand jury, then it goes to trial in another 2 or 3 years.
All right, now think about that. If it's sitting there for a while, just looking at the guy that's worried about that.
Mm-hmm.
What, a year, did you say?
Some sit there for a year or more.
I mean, let's say you get committed of this, arrested, I guess, for this crime, and you're going to go to Sessions Court. You're sitting there for how long worried about your fate? That's like 1 year out of your whole life that you're worried about your fate.
Right. And you're missing work to go to court, and you're missing work to go to court, because it's not just like, okay, we'll set it a year off. We usually set a month off, 2 months off. So it's...
And you're raising 5 kids. Now put yourself in that guy's position. You're raising 5 kids, and you're reading them a book at night, and you can't plan a trip for 11 months from now because you don't even know if it's going to be put off a year. You think it's going to be next month.
Right.
But next month is Christmas, and then New Year's, and pandemic hits, and then COVID hits, and the snow days. And next thing you know, this guy's just in torment.
And then you look at victims as well. On the other side of that, if you've been robbed or something, you're waiting a year or 2, 3 to find out what's going to happen.
That's
you're
true.
Going to get restitution. So that's one of the biggest reasons I'm running, because I've seen that go on in that court. And I on my campaign website, under my plan, one of my first things on there is every case will be handled within 3 months. There's no reason for cases to drag out.
Can a good lawyer stall that off?
Yes, yes.
I mean, that's the trick,
yeah,
isn't it?
and I don't fault them for that on the defense side of things, because obviously when you're a defense attorney, you're trying to make a case better for your client.
All the time it
Right.
gets better.
And yeah, as far as a case from, obviously I was a prosecutor for a long time. For a prosecutor side, the case is best when it first happens, because people remember what happened. They're willing to go testify. They called the police, so they want to come to court on it.
It's fresh in everybody's
But
mind.
the longer you can drag it out, people, witnesses die, witnesses move away, cops retire, all this stuff can happen. And so that's why I really think justice delayed is justice denied to everyone involved. So like I said, my big plan is every case needs to be heard in 3 months. There's no excuses. There's no reason that it should take longer than that. Because obviously when you have a judge that doesn't hold people accountable, they'll come to court not ready for the case or knowing they can drag it out. And it can be on both sides. It can be the prosecutor's not ready. It can be, the defense attorney's not ready. And you need a judge that's going to say, look, these are the rules for everybody. I don't care whether you're the state or you're the defense. We need to have the hearing today, or it needs to be bound over today, whatever that might be.
What if it's a snow day? What if it snows? Because people will come up with excuses.
Right. Well, people always come up with excuses, but that's why if you have a hard line rule, if it's 3 months, it's going on one way or the other. It's getting dismissed, bound over to grand jury, or if it's a misdemeanor, it's pleading out.
I always hated in school when the teacher would give an assignment and I would stay up real late to get it done, and the next day should give us 3 more days. Now I felt like I needed to redo it and make sure I had it right. And everybody that didn't stay up late got 3 more days. And then you get dependent on the 3 more days. So if you just had an exact time, everybody knows about it, it would be a lot better, and it would be and if you're guilty and you need to start serving time theoretically, let's get on with it, man. Let's knock this thing out.
I mean, the last basically DUI case I took right to the day of trial was almost 4 years old. And to think about that, that's 4 years that this guy's been kind of in limbo. It's 4 years. You have a cop coming to trial that's probably 1,000 stops ago. For him.
He don't remember.
Yeah, he's trying to remember.
He's not even mad anymore.
And it's like that should never happen. Whether this guy's convicted, he ended up pleading, but whether he had pled or been acquitted, shouldn't have taken 4 years. And so that's one of my key goals is we need to really get that court moving along. 4
years, man! Can you imagine that guy not being able to plan? I guess he couldn't go out of town, right? I guess can you go to Florida when you're waiting on a DUI trial?
I think you can. I think as long as you're in touch with your bonding company, because it's usually a pretty low bond for that, but it's dependent on what your bond conditions are. But it's hanging over this guy's head.
Yeah.
And then as a prosecutor, it's like, yeah, okay, the conviction happened, but do I feel really great about convicting someone 4 years after the fact? That's why we need to. I think it's imperative that we get cases resolved quickly, and we need to have justice quickly, whether that's acquittals or someone being convicted, depending on what the proof is, right?
Or let's just forget it and go home. But let's not have everybody
have it dragged out. And that's my goal at that level, because like I said, that's Sessions Court it's such an important thing to just keep it moving.
Why is that important to you? Why is that an important point?
Well, I mean, like I said, I loved being a prosecutor. I think stepping down from that to run for this judge spot was probably the toughest decision I've made as career-wise. But I did it because when you're in that court and you see these problems, you got to try to fix it. And I would have, victims will come, they'll sit all day, and then, at the end of the day, the judge will continue the case, and you have to tell victims, I'm sorry, you got to come back in 3 months. And, it's like, eventually, I talked to, I won't say who it was, but just yesterday I had a long conversation with a victim who had been to court 4 times over a bad check, worth maybe $1,000, somewhere in there. And he's like, man, at the end of it, it's like, I've lost more time and money leaving my job to come to court on this stupid bad check case than the bad check ever cost me. And that's wrong. I mean, victims shouldn't have to go through that. And like I said, the person who wrote the bad check shouldn't have to have that dragged out over their head forever. You know.
And maybe he didn't write the bad check.
Right.
We need
right,
to,
yeah,
we just
that's
need to
what
get
I'm
on
saying,
with it.
Yeah. We need to find resolution to things.
Do you think coming from the district attorney's office makes you more, I don't want to say on the side of the victim, because that would be because I don't see you as that type, but can you, if you came from that side versus the other side, say the what's that thing that Leon's working,
Public defender.
public defender,
Yeah.
because y'all are coming from, in fact, you're his actual counterpart. Have I got it right?
We are, yes, yeah. But I would say our roles are slightly different because obviously, public defender, your role is to put on a defense and represent your client. District attorney, your role is not to get a conviction every time; it's to get the justice and the truth.
Do you
know,
believe
and
that?
I strongly believe that. I mean, over my career as a prosecutor, I've looked at a lot of cases and said, you know what, it's not here. You know, I've talked to people that are victims, you know, and say this could have happened, but can I prove it beyond a reasonable doubt? No. So we can't go forward in good faith and do that. You know, and so I think that knowing, you know, having that desire for justice will make me a good judge because, you know, whether it's, hey, this guy's not, you know, this guy's guilty and we need to get this case moving, or, you know, the proof's just not there, we're dismissing it. You know, you need someone in there that's impartial.
That's what you need to be, is try to be as impartial as possible.
I think when you the justice system starts moving along and it being efficient, that's good for everybody. It doesn't matter if you're accused of a crime wrongly. It's better if you're accused wrongly. It's better to get that resolved quickly. If you're accused rightfully, you know, if you did it, it's better to get that resolved quickly. If you're a victim, it's better to know one way or the other what's going to happen in the case than to have it drag out forever.
You're trying to focus on the incident, not the timing of it, not the time wrangling, moving around that they can do.
Right, right. So like I said, it's just if you have a 3-month rule, and that's what it says on my website, that's what I'll do is every case within 3 months from arraignment, it has to be out of this court.
Well, if it's not, it goes on to them.
Yeah, well, it will be because the judge sets the docket, you know, and there's the judge can say, okay, you know, if we're not ready for a preliminary hearing, it's dismissed. Okay, if the defense is asking for a continuance, but it's the 3 months, then it's just moving along. You know, you at a certain point under the rules, you know, under the judicial rules, you can waive the rules of criminal procedure is what I'm looking for. You can waive your right to have a preliminary hearing as a defendant too. You know, you have a right to preliminary hearing within 30 days. Or 2 weeks if you're in custody, and if you keep dragging it out, you've pretty much waived that 30-day rule. So,
yeah,
you know, and that's my thing is to start holding people accountable on all sides to that rule. And like I said, I was a prosecutor. I think the prosecuting office is doing a good job of trying to get cases moving, but it definitely takes both sides to tango. So,
yeah, and there's so much ambiguity in all of it. It's just be hard to. It seems like it'd be if you were working at the district attorney's office or the defense, what do you call that, defense?
The public defender.
Public defender's office. You'd rather have a set of rules. It'd be like going out on the baseball field and you say, okay, 3 strikes and you're out, probably. Right. How would you like to play that game?
Right.
You know, well, we might give him 4 strikes this time.
Right, and I think it's about fairness too. I mean, it's like, okay, if you hired the greatest attorney, they can continue this thing for years if they want, you know, or if you hire someone else, you're getting the case resolved in 2 months. Like, you know, the rule, it needs to just be a hard line rule for everybody. It doesn't matter, you know, if it's you, if it's me, whoever it is in that court needs to know within 3 months it's out of this court.
And that would take a lot of biases out of it too. And these are the rules that we're playing by, and this is it. I would have no idea. I would have no idea as a layman that some of these things take that much time to keep people in limbo. The victim and the person that supposedly committed the crime.
Right, and that's the thing. That's the hardest thing about running for judge is because most people, they don't know what's going on in the court.
They don't
and
know.
they don't want to go to the court, and they don't want to really hear about it. And so that's been my I wouldn't say difficulty, but that's been figuring out how to do that when you're campaigning, is how to really impart to people and say this is important, because it's important, because if you get accused of a crime, or if you become a victim of a crime, it's important to have justice quickly. It's important to know that the judge is going to value your time, whichever side you're on, and that's another thing is we'll have people, like I said, sit there all day, because a court opens usually about 9 o'clock and it goes till the docket's over, right? And so we can be going 5, 6 at night, 7, 8. I've been in court till 9 or 10 before.
Golly.
And that's someone who's sitting there 12 hours missing work and everything else. And another big thing that I'm going to do, and I've talked to the clerk's office about a little bit about what we can do, but there's a lot of drug cases right now, obviously, and those are cases that don't have victims per se. There's drug cases, DUIs, driving.
Didn't hurt anybody.
Right. And the only person you would need for a preliminary hearing would be police officers. And right now, those cases are all on one docket with all the victim cases, robberies and burglaries and thefts. And so everyone's just kind of thrown in there, and it's just, well, when we get to you, we'll get to you. And what I'm going to do is if I become judge and fortunate enough to get voted in the morning we're going to do victim cases. And every victim case will be heard by lunchtime. And that'll get everybody working hard, because if you put it up against lunchtime, people are going to, I always find attorneys like to work hardest about 11 o'clock is when we really start going, because we want to go to lunch.
Yeah.
That's a human nature.
Right,
so
sure.
Victim cases all would be heard between 9 and 12 to 1 o'clock. And that would get victims to know, okay, I'm only going to wait till 3 or 4 hours today. I'm not coming here for all day. And then we can do drug cases and non-victim cases in the afternoon. And it's simple stuff like that I think, these are things that I will do if I get elected.
Isn't that only right? I mean, you're saying it's a scheduling thing, but me as a layman, like for instance, you do speeding tickets too.
There are speeding tickets in that court, yes.
So I got a speeding ticket here a year or so ago, and Sheridan was the judge, and so I go in there, and there's 50 people in there. They're all sitting there waiting, and so one of the lawyers was there, and I nodded at him, and he nodded at me, and next thing you know, I'm up there, and I'm out of there. And I'm thinking as I'm leaving, was that really fair? All these other people just sitting here because I just think it would be better, like you're saying, it would be more fair to everybody.
Right, and that's my goal. Like I said, that's, as a prosecutor, it was about justice, right? And that's what I want to bring to this role as a judge. I don't want people to be treated different based on who they are.
Now, when you say justice, the layman hears, I'm going to put people in jail. But what you're saying to me is fairness.
Right.
It's a little different from the layman.
Right, and
fairness.
And you can't put everyone in jail, just to be honest with you, because we don't have a jail the size to hold everybody.
No.
So it's that's what I'm looking for, is what can we do to make it better for whether you're accused of a crime or whether you're the victim of a crime. We need to have the justice system tailored to bring justice quickly, and that's good for either side of that coin.
Yeah, everything else can be unknown and ambiguous, but you want to take this section of the justice system and bring order to it and some type of a scheduling.
Yes.
That's what you're wanting to do.
That's a good way to break it down. And like I said, I'm a real conservative guy, so order is something that really appeals to me. I try to bring order to different areas of my life, which with 5 kids can be tough, but that's something I want to bring there.
Anybody that has 5 kids, takes them to Sunday school and to church and back here by 4:30, and I noticed odd things. I noticed you didn't get here at 20 till, and you didn't get here at 20 after. You got here exactly. You were using every minute.
Yes, sir. I was actually out. It's raining today, so I was actually out in the rain putting down T-posts and putting up some of my big signs. It's like I can get a few of those put up before the interview, get back in time, dry off, and then throw them back on my sweater and run over here.
You're very articulate.
Well, I appreciate that.
I mean, you're quick on your comment. Where did you get that?
Probably more my mom. Yeah, she's a talker, and she her whole family is kind of engaging like that, and I think that just flowed naturally from her. Because like I said, my dad's a firefighter and more of the, he can do it, type personality and building and carpentry and all that stuff, and so I guess I inherited my mom's kind of communication.
Did you give any speeches or anything? You talk very good. Where did you learn that? I mean, maybe that was inherited, but I sense some education in there.
Well, so I, growing up, I was, we were big into church, and I was big at youth group, and I would do announcements at church, even in big church, that, and I think, they go, oh, that's just church, but that anytime you get an opportunity to speak in public, it makes you better.
Oh, and especially in front of the church, you have to walk up and get her behind the pew.
Right, and I tried to add some levity and have some jokes and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
and I did the drama program. I led the drama program when I was in high school at our youth group, so I was trying to put on skits and things like that. I was a communications major in college, so did a lot of public speaking in that. And like I said, I worked in radio briefly. I was a play-by-play announcer, and then obviously law is very, there's different types of law. There's the guys like my regulatory attorney. I don't know if he goes to court that much. I don't think he does, but he's reading and doing that side of law. But I'm, as a prosecutor, I was in court, and you're talking to people, and you're doing jury selection, and you're trying to, relate to a jury. And so I think it's just all of that it's just in my wheelhouse. I really enjoy doing it.
Do you think that these stacks of, going back to, we'd mentioned Scott Adams on our thing in his book, How to Lose at Everything and Win Big, or whatever, his book talks about the stacks of skills that we develop over time, not really necessarily an expert at any one thing, but these skills that we've stacked up makes us good at this particularly. So maybe these skills that you've stacked up actually makes you good at this one sessions court judge.
I hope so. I mean, I feel very passionate about it because, like I said, I quit a job I love doing, a job that I felt a lot of fulfillment in, being a prosecutor and pursuing justice to try to make things better. And I do believe, obviously, I wouldn't do it if I didn't, that I can make these changes, and make things better and improve things for everyone involved. So I do think all of my life experiences, and even my back injury, even going through pain, going through hard times, can help me relate to people and can help me give out not just, hard, strong-arm justice, but also understand what folks are going through.
And you're from California, and you're here, and you're relating to me just like, if you hadn't told me that you'd lived in California, I thought you was from, Monroe County.
Yeah. Well, I'm not your typical Californian, obviously.
I mean, you don't even have, do I have an accent to you?
Not really, no.
Because I can't sense anything with you.
Yeah. I mean, I picked up the y'alls. I try to,
y'alls.
I talked, and but I'm not. Obviously, people here. I'm from you're from California. They kind of put up like, but I'm pretty conservative.
I don't sense that at all.
Yeah.
I don't sense that at all. I would have thought. I thought just from, Dayton or whatever. How long have you been here? So
we've been here about 8 years now. So as soon as I graduated law school, I like to say we got the heck out. I told my wife, we're not staying in California. I'm a Christian conservative. I want to have a family. And at the point when I graduated law school, we had 2 kids. So I said, we're not going to stay here and raise our family.
Where was the law school at?
UCLA. So
where's that?
So it's in Los Angeles, University of California, Los Angeles.
Why Cleveland, Tennessee?
So in law school, I worked with the Alliance Defending Freedom, which is like a Christian conservative group. I did pro-life work for them. And so when I got near the end of law school and had convinced my wife that we were getting out of California, she basically, I wanted to go to Wyoming or Alaska or somewhere, like that. I like the outdoors.
Yeah.
But she wasn't about to go to Alaska. So we had some family. I have some cousins in Nashville. We actually flew out my last semester of college. I interviewed with all the big, or of law school. We interviewed with all the big firms out in Nashville, and it wasn't what I was looking for. To go from LA to Nashville wasn't the change I wanted. You know, I wanted to go to a real conservative place and start keep growing my family. So I called the Alliance Defending Freedom, who I'd worked with, and said, hey, look, do y'all have any attorneys that are associated with you or anywhere in Tennessee? My wife says Tennessee is good. I don't really want to go to Nashville. Do you have anything? And they had a guy in Chattanooga, and what he did is basically he worked to regulate and basically shut down like strip clubs, adult businesses, because a lot of those will come in and say, oh, I can't put an adult business by a kid's school. Watch me. You know? And so that was his job. And so he flew us out. I interviewed, not knowing a soul in this area in Chattanooga, Cleveland, and he hired me on the spot. So I flew back to California. We had my son, my second kid. I flew back out to Nashville, took the bar, flew back to California. We loaded up and we drove across on we did a month-long trip when my son was a month old. Because I was like, we were never going to have that opportunity then. We went to, the Grand Canyon. We went to all the different national parks in Utah. We went to the Rocky Mountains. And then from there, we basically just drove through. There's not much from Nebraska.
So you came to Chattanooga first?
We lived in Ottawa for the first little bit. I worked for, Scott Berthold was his name. I worked for him for about a year and a half. And it was good work, but it was a small firm. So if it went to court, Scott was going to court to argue.
Yeah.
And it's his firm, he's the partner there. Yeah. So I did a lot of stuff behind the scenes, which I enjoyed. But my personality type is to get out there and talk.
You're not a backseat guy.
Right. And so, what happened was my wife said, this has been a good job, but you're not loving going to work. You kind of dreaded going to work because you're not getting out of the office. You're just typing on a computer all day. I had worked with the DA's office in San Antonio. That's where my wife's from, briefly during a summer during law school. And she said, you really loved that. Why don't you just go look at some, the DA around here? So I actually went in with my resume to Steve Crump's office, who's our DA here, back about 6 years ago, and said, I would like to give my resume to Steve Crump. And the front desk one was like, do you have an appointment with Steve Crump?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I just wanted to hand it to him and shake his hand, and I'm just be happy to work here if there's an opening or anything, but I would love to hand it to him. And they said, well, you need an appointment. I was like, well, I'll just sit down. So I sat down and waited, and I saw Steve come walking by him, because I'd seen pictures of him. I was like, that's the guy, and he looked, but because you never know who comes in the DA's office. It's usually kind of so you can get some crazies, right? So he saw me, kind of walked off, and then Calvin Rockholt, who I don't know if you know Calvin, but he's kind of the old lawman. He's he was a longtime police officer, and he's now the criminal investigator over there. So he came walking out and said, you're gonna have to leave, son. He's got a gun on him. He said, I'll get this to Crump. And so he took the resume. I walked out there. I told my wife, well, I'm never getting a job there. They basically just kicked me out. And then Steve Crump called me the next day and said, you got some gumption. I really like that you wanted to hand it to me in person. And now that I know that's what it was, I want you to come interview. So I came and interviewed, and I think I got hired within about a week or two after that. So
and you got to give credit. I've got to give credit to Steve Crump for seeing that. That's pretty smart.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully so.
Because
hopefully he would say, yeah, that was a good hire.
You're extremely articulate, and he didn't know that at the time he called you. So that's. Were you there when Mac McCorn was there?
Yes. Yeah, we overlapped.
He's a good friend of mine.
Yeah, he's a good one.
He's a good one. Yeah. Do you know he was on Dateline?
He was. Yeah. Yeah.
He was interviewed by who was that guy's name?
I know I've seen the interview, but it's been a while.
What's that guy's name? God, who's that guy's name? Dateline, NBC.
I know who you're
That'll
talking about.
That'll drive me crazy.
Yeah.
That'll drive me crazy.
But yeah, he made the big time with that.
He made the big time. I asked him about that. He said that the guy just flew in, said that thing, and left right away. But Mac is a good guy, isn't he?
Yeah,
he really is.
Yeah. Like I said, unfortunately, we only overlapped for a couple of years. But yeah, he was a good guy. Pretty good sense of humor too.
Dry.
Yeah,
very dry.
Yeah. I remember one story with him as I was there in Sessions Court you know, and he was in Sessions Court, and Sessions Court can always be chaos because you have hundreds of cases and you got files everywhere, and there were some interns with our office that were there, and that's like their first day, right? And so the secretary had brought them to Sessions Court to see the chaos, and you know, and so that she was introducing them to Mac, and you know, she said, oh, this is, you know, whatever the names were, John Smith, and this and that. And so he shakes their hands, and he looks at me and goes, hey, I'm Mac McCoy. And it's like, I know, Mac, you know, but that's just a sense of humor. It's pretty good, so it's pretty fast.
You know, if Mac likes you, you're in. He likes you, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's a good one for sure.
You know, his brother George is a good friend of mine. They're different, but they're same, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can tell they're brothers.
It's interesting how even as you grow up, even if you don't look that alike, you have a lot of the mannerisms.
A lot of them, and
the
you
life
know,
experience. I think
we don't know if we just see them or if they're really there, but either way, they're there.
Right.
You know.
Right.
So does this job scare you on any level?
I mean, I don't know if scare is the right word. I think it's a very important job. I think it's a job that you need to come into with a lot of serious contemplation. You know, you're holding, you have the ability to affect lives in that job. But I think it's also, as a prosecutor, you have that same ability. You have to look at, you know, the case and know that, man, if you charge this, that could be a big thing for somebody, right? Or if you don't charge it, it's a big thing for the people that feel like they've been wronged. Yeah. You know, and so I think in a lot of ways I've been prepared for 6 years as a prosecutor for that job. So.
Were you ever a victim in any situation or the victim of being accused but you weren't guilty, or have you ever had that situation?
So I haven't been wrongfully accused. No, at UCLA when I was in law school, I've had my bike stolen twice. So I guess I was a victim in that regard. Had my 2 bikes of mine were stolen, and obviously I never got justice. They just, I don't know how you never find a bike, but they just bike away, I guess, and that's that. But
so did that bother you?
It did. I mean, because in law school, you're hardly rich in law school. You're living on loans, and my bike was the way I was getting from I was about 2 miles from campus, or 1.5 miles, 2 miles from campus, and that was my way to cut into class quick. Just jump on my bike and go in. So it definitely was a pain. And then I saved up to get that other bike, and then that got taken about a few months later. So
did you feel? I don't know the word, but violated in a sense? I mean, they stole your bicycle twice, and the powers that be cared nothing about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you feel like you've been had, right? You feel, but thankfully, I mean, it's just a bike. At the end of the day, thankfully, when I say that I'm a victim, I mean, I am, but not.
That's what we tell ourselves now, but.
Oh, in the moment.
But in the moment.
You have a lot of emotions when you go down and look at the bike rack and your bike's been cut out, and to know that you're not, you're going to call them, you can make a police report, but it's not going to matter.
And is the guy that's riding my bike watching me?
Right.
It's a violation thing.
Right. And where I was, LA is such a huge city, it's hard to catch a bike thief. Mm-hmm. Here, I think we have officers that do a great job. And
sure.
I'm sure they'd probably catch them.
But it's the fact that thinking that there's somebody on the playground that's going to blow the whistle and say, "Hey, y'all broken the rules. Don't do that."
Right.
And when stuff like that happens, it makes you wonder if there's even anybody going to blow the whistle. I mean, like for instance, now in California, you had to be stealing over $1,000 or something.
Ridiculous.
I don't know if that's fake news or what, but
no, that's true. And you see videos all the time from Walgreens. I think Walgreens just said they were going to shut down in San Francisco and completely, like 20 locations, because the district attorney in San Francisco said, I'm not going to prosecute misdemeanor thefts. So that means anything under $1,000 they're not going to prosecute.
What would you if you're a thief? You got a calculator with you. Say no. This is under under $1,000, is that retail or wholesale?
Right, yeah. Who's determining the $1,000?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and what's happening is that, businesses, if they don't think that the police are coming, they're not going to put their, someone making $10 an hour is not getting in the way of someone stealing.
Not a chance.
Because no one's coming to help you.
Nobody's going to look for the bicycle.
Nobody's going to care.
Nobody's looking for the bicycle.
Right. And it's sad. It's a sad state. And that's, like I said, that's why I moved out of California, because I've seen kind of what the mindset out there can do. And that's another reason I'm running out here is because I want to keep common sense here. I want to keep conservative principles in Bradley County, because I've seen what can happen when you go away from that. Most people don't anymore. They don't think of it. But California used to be a Republican state. It gave us Reagan, Nixon. Not like he's a great Republican.
Yeah, it gave us Reagan. Right? That's right.
But and
tried to give us Trump. May have, but we can't say it.
Yeah. But it obviously it changed. And California has, next to Texas, the second most amount of Republicans in the whole United States as far as a state. But they're just so outnumbered.
Yeah.
So like I said, I've seen the change that can happen in a state when you give, obviously I think getting rid of God and following some leftist type ideology has really destroyed that state. And I don't want that to happen here.
When did that start? When the lady got... I feel like it maybe started when that lady wanted to take prayer out of church. That's when I remember hearing it.
We can start marking it from that, and that was I think the late 50s, if I remember right, somewhere in the 60s, late 50s, early 60s, maybe 64. I'd have to go back and look. In that case, and then you had Roe v. Wade happen shortly after that, and it's just kind of been a slow decline since then.
It's like a cancer.
Well, it just keeps growing, and once you get God out of your government, out of your leaders, out of your life, you go down a dark path. And
that's why I think the founders had the dollar says, "In God we trust."
Well, and you even look at, people always say, well, they were deists and they didn't believe in God and all, this kind of stuff. But you even look at Benjamin Franklin was talking about the Constitutional Convention, and he said, prayer was, and I don't know the exact quote, but, he asked that they pray and that they pray to God for wisdom. And they opened that convention that way. And
Benjamin Franklin wasn't necessarily a model.
No, he wasn't a moral man, but there was still that reference and deference to God, right?
That's right.
And realization that God is the authority, and that's where rights come from. When you look at the Bill of Rights, it comes from God. It's not granted to you from the government, and I think we're losing that ability to see that, because you look at places like California with that mindset. It's the state is God, has become God. The state's going to give you the money. The state's going to tell you what to do. The state gives you rights and takes away rights. And that's not the way it is. Our rights come from God, and our founders said, if we don't have a moral people, this will fail. And I think we're seeing
there's no way around that. There's no way around if we don't go by the principles of God, whether you believe God or not. If you don't go by Him, it's not going to keep going. It's going to crash and burn.
Right. And I think that's what we're seeing right now. I think, and like I said, I grew up in California, so I've seen it better than most people about what can happen as you slowly turn your back.
When you were in California, was there I just get so confused about all that. Now us in East Tennessee and Cleveland, Tennessee, we probably have no clue of how crazy it's getting out there, right? Or other places.
Yeah, I don't think we have any clue about, I think we kind of know because we can look at, the news or whatever and say, oh man, those Californians, they're not prosecuting thefts or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But until you go, and there's a lot of great people in California. Like I said, there's a lot of conservative people there. So I don't want to just talk bad about the whole place. Yeah. But the powers that be are definitely not grounded in common sense. They're, they're not Christian by any sense. I don't think you could say. And their mindset is just bigger state, bigger government, get power, and that's why California is going the way it is. And at UCLA, I had some unique experience because I was obviously in the very small minority as,
I bet.
Yeah, I say I was 0 for 4 because I was white, Christian, male, conservative. So it's like everything bad you could be.
Yeah.
I was, and so I had some, like when I went to UCLA, we had Obergefell, which was the gay marriage decision, was happening. I was in the Federalist Society, so I hosted a debate between a Catholic scholar for traditional marriage, a scholar from the Williams Institute at UCLA, which was their LGBTQ think tank at UCLA. And the Catholic scholar was a better debater. I had no clue that it would be better. I just got two academics to come debate. But I remember that, a lot of the LGBTQ student groups, wanted me to do a public apology and said I shouldn't be kicked out of the school. And I had to have our Federalist Society, faculty member have to come in and step in and say, look, this guy did nothing wrong. This is law school. We need to be able to have debates. And this case wasn't even decided yet.
Golly.
And I can only imagine what kids now are going through there.
That was 10 years ago.
Yeah, that was back in like 2011, I guess.
When it wasn't even popular.
Right. Well, even in California, I think that Proposition 8, which was for traditional marriage, passed. So even a majority of Californians were not, they were for traditional marriage back then. Mm-hmm. And that's when and I had just hosted a debate. Like I said, that was a fun week, when you have a whole student group out to get you and acting like you're some kind of terrible person just because you had an academic debate. And that was 10 years ago. So I can't even imagine what the guys over there are going through right now.
Let me tell you about Gobbles Automotive. They're on North Lee Highway, just past Captain D's. They're family owned, they're family operated. My whole family uses them. They've stood the test of time. They will do you a good job. Give them a try. They're no problem.
When you go into Cleveland and tomorrow you're sitting at the Old Fort Restaurant ordering
And
meat.
I've seen you there. Go to the
Liar's table.
Yeah.
And order the whatever. Aren't you so thankful?
Yes. Yeah, every night I pretty much thank God that He brought me here.
To Cleveland, Tennessee.
Not knowing a soul, when we came out 8 years ago.
And aren't we the nicest people? I mean, nobody cares where you're from. We just...
We'll see, I guess, election day. I'll see election
we'll see
day.
election, yeah.
I know that'll probably could be used against me then.
Well, you could lose. Who knows? But
yeah,
but you're not.
The sentiment is true. I think we have been so accepted here and loved on here. We were in a great church. We love the church we're at. The people I work with on both sides, as far as defense attorneys, prosecutors, in that realm have been great to me and nice to me. It's been a great place, and it's somewhere where, like I said, when I was in California, I was anathema with my conservative values and what I believed in. Mm-hmm. And here, they're almost, not everybody, but you're accepted for that, mm-hmm. And I think that's a great thing.
I can't imagine Cleveland is just such a great place to live. I mean, I don't know if you could have picked a better place to have landed.
Right.
Thanks to Steve Crump saying,
"Hey, I'll take a chance.
I'll take a chance
on this." Yeah, I agree. I mean, and like I said, it's just a complete that God would use a back injury to take me all the way, 2,000 miles away from where I grew up.
And here. What's God taken now to propel? You ever think about this? Going back to, God controlling our lives. You say, well, why did it rain today? I was wanting to do this. Well, maybe He's answering that other guy's prayer.
Right.
And he was wanting it to rain more than, hang on, it's going to be dry for longer than you need. Or how does He answer everybody's prayers?
In His timing. I think that's the answer, right?
Remember that movie that that guy was in, that comedian, where he was playing God and he was hearing all these.
Jim Carrey, right?
Jim Carrey, yeah.
Yeah. I forget what was that movie called? Evan Almighty was the worst one with Steve Carell. Bruce Almighty, right?
Bruce Almighty, yeah. That was a little bit sacrilegious, and it was hard for me to watch it because I was raised not to be sacrilegious, and I don't exactly know what it means, but I know it when I hear it.
Right.
But that would be difficult for God to answer everybody's prayers. I mean, you'd have to be playing a chess game all the time of, I don't know all the answers, do you?
Right. Well, I mean, I think God's answer isn't always ours. You know, that's what I like to think. Like, you know, I like I say, I keep going back to my bank, but I prayed for, you know, thousands of hours. Heal me, Lord. Take this away from me. Let me be a firefighter. I'm done being in pain. And he didn't answer that like that. You know, but now, over a decade later, it's like, man, I met my wife, and I've come to this great place, and I have 5 kids I wouldn't have had, and I have a great, you know, I've had a great job, and now I'm going for this judge role, and it's all because of that, you know, because he answered it now, you know, so it was his timing, and his answer is not what I wanted originally. But now looking back, it's like, man, what a great way that he answered that.
You know, it's almost the story of Noah, right? Noah prayed that he would, not Noah.
You're talking about
Job,
yeah.
Yeah.
Which is I read a lot when I was going through the back stuff.
I mean that's almost identical to what
Right.
you've almost said the whole
I'm not
book
even
of
close
Job.
to what he went through. I mean, he
even close.
He had, you know, afflictions, and his family got killed, and his children he lost.
His whole family.
Right. Has lost his wealth and his fortune, and
Everybody was making fun of
right.
him.
His wife was basically saying, you just need to curse God and die,
Yeah.
you know, and
Lost everything he
Right.
had, and went and sat in the ashes, right, for 7 days or
right,
whatever.
right.
What was the purpose of that? Was that a
Yeah.
biblical times that they would literally sit in the ashes, wouldn't they?
Well, and he, you know, if you read it, he was sitting there with his friends too, right? So it was kind of like, I think it was a communal, just a mourning. You know, there's no lower that you can get than being covered in ashes and dirt and filth.
But he did that as a penance, I think.
yeah.
He went and sat in the ashes for 7 days or something.
Yeah.
And then after it was over, God made him, I think
then
the
he
Bible
blessed
says
him
it
and
made
brought
him
him back.
richer than he was
Right,
ever.
had kids and everything else. But
I wondered about Job if he ever said, well, boy, I miss my first wife. Because didn't his first wife die? Or
I think she's stuck around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I don't. Like I said, that's a crazy thing. But I think, you know, God brought him. I think the key in that is God's God. You know, we think, oh man, it's not fair. Life's not fair. You know, but every breath is a miracle. You know, we don't deserve any of it. So I think that's really the.
do you think when people die, they go immediately to heaven, or do you think they're in some kind of paradise for a while and then to a judgment day? Or is that a Baptist question?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't think we'll. I know there's a lot of debate on all sides.
Yeah.
You know, because maybe it's Ephesians. It says the dead in Christ will rise first, and then everyone else. You know.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, weren't they? If they were already up there, why are they rising first? But you know, but I also know that when Jesus was on the cross, he turned to the you know, the robber on the cross that believed him and said, "Today you'll see me in paradise." So
That's
you know, it's, whether paradise is heaven or whether it's
He said, today I will be with you in paradise.
Yeah.
So
but
we just go by his words. That's what he
paradise
says.
seems pretty good. So whether that's the big heaven or paradise,
I'm
but,
not sure if it matters, right?
I don't think it matters. I know we'll see Jesus when we die. So
Now, as being a judge, you almost can't take religion in with you.
right.
You
Well,
have to be non-religious. You have to just follow the rules, right?
Well, I mean, I think you're obviously my faith informs how I live my life. You know, I live my life with the belief that God is in control and things like that. But obviously, I think the way that our laws are written and some decisions have come down, you can't be evangelizing on the bench and telling people, you know, you need to repent and believe in Jesus and not.
Yeah,
You know,
that would be a problem, wouldn't it? I mean, you can't do that.
You cannot do it.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, obviously, I think my faith will be a part of my philosophy and my decision making. You know, and
Philosophy is the right word.
right.
Just kind of your, almost that your philosophy influences it in the fact that you're not going to be swayed by anything that's not raw evidence.
Right.
So that's maybe the only swaying there is.
Right, and a lot of stuff is calling balls and strikes as a judge. Is it hearsay? Then I can't consider it.
Would that be a ball?
Yeah, hearsay, would be something you couldn't consider as far as, if it's an out-of-court statement for the truth of the matter asserted, that can't come into evidence. Things like that,
Where did you say that statement again?
If an out-of-court utterance offered for the truth of the matter asserted. So if I went to court and said, hey, Dee told me X, Y, Z,
yeah,
I couldn't do that because you'd have to come to court and say, yeah, I told Clay X, Y, Z. Then you could come in there and tell that. So that's just one of the rules. There's, tons of rules of evidence, hundreds of rules of evidence.
Boy.
And that's all I've done for the last 6 years. So I think that's why this is a perfect fit for me, because that's my expertise is. But,
yeah, you've been groomed for this job, obviously.
Well, and like I said, I would think as far as all the attorneys around, I've been in sessions as much as any of them over the last 6 years. I've been in McMinn County sessions, Monroe County sessions, Polk County sessions, Bradley sessions. So I've seen 4 different sessions courts, how they're run.
Oh, and you're only running for one of those 4.
Just in Bradley, yes, yeah.
Are the others run similar?
For the most part, I think, like I said, one of the big reasons I'm running in Bradley is because I think Bradley, we can really improve the efficiency and get it moving more. I know McMinn County Judge Wiley Richardson up there, he does a really good job of getting cases moving. It's very rare to see a case in there over 6 months. The same with Brooklyn Townsend and Polk County, Judge Thomas up in Monroe County as well, they get cases moving. And that's, like I said, that's my goal, is to just get stuff moving. And I think, a lot of times people say, oh, well, you're too young to be a judge. You need more experience. Like, I have the energy to do this, because it takes, when you've got 200 cases on a docket in a day, it takes energy to say, yeah, we're going to do each one of them, and we're going to be here till it's over, and we're going to get it moving. And so I think that'll actually be an asset.
Do you know Corey Dival at the city?
The name sounds familiar. I don't know if
you and him are a spitting image. You ought to meet him. You and him are a lot alike, and he's got a lot of energy too, and he's worked for the staff at the city of Cleveland. He's Johnny on the spot, and he's organized, and he's knows the answers. And you and him are a lot. I bet you're about the same age. Corey Dival. You ought to.
I'll put him in my phone.
He's a good guy. He's a great guy.
Well, and I think we need people that are, not, I don't say younger. I don't feel young with 5 kids. I feel pretty old. But, people that are in this age group, 30 to 45, 50, to get involved. And because so often, people in my age group, unfortunately, they don't get engaged, and they don't want to make a difference, and they don't want to be positive, make a positive difference and be motivated. But eventually, they're going to be the leaders.
If you look at age to determine who to use for stuff, you're going to be sadly messed up, whether it be old or young or whatever. Like riding bikes. You said you rode bikes. You just a commute bike.
Yeah, just to go to school and back. Yeah.
I ride road bikes.
Okay.
I rode 44 miles yesterday, freezing. And
so you're biking, like just pedaling?
Yeah,
Man.
Road bikes.
Wow.
44 miles, and it was cold.
Yeah.
All the way up to Benton, up around the courthouse, over Patty Road, back into Cleveland, Upper River Road, and down.
So how long does that take? 40 some miles? Is that?
Since it was so cold, I think we did 16 miles an hour or something,
Okay,
which is
so a couple of 3-4 hours.
Slow for a good rider, but the average person could not do it. And you're freezing. Yeah. You're freezing.
Yeah.
Yes, because it's
Doesn't sound like
45
appealing to me,
degrees
to be
or
honest.
something.
Yeah.
But one thing I've learned, that when you ride with a group, there's a guy that rides with us that's 72.
Man.
I can't catch him.
Huh.
In fact, he just got a tattoo. I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
He got a tattoo on his calf of Superman. This guy's 72
I
years
guess
old.
you can do that if you're 72 and can ride a bike like that.
I mean, you just got to take your hat off to a guy like that.
Right.
But then you take somebody 24, 25 that's maybe not in shape. He can't keep up with me. So you can't look at somebody's age and determine whether or not they're going to be good in a position.
Right. I agree with you. And I think that's why people need to look at what people are saying, what they're going to do and what's their plan and why do you want to do this,
and how they
and
articulate
what did you
it.
do before this,
Right.
Is this is this just something for you that you want to do to just become a judge or whatever the position? Do you just want to do it for you, or do you actually have a vision to make a change and make a positive impact? So.
I don't know about everybody else, but you sold me.
Well, I appreciate that. If you want a sign, I've got 1,000 signs. I'm sure you've been seeing them up there, those Clay Collins signs. So yeah.
I have seen them. In fact, when I go riding in the county, there's a lot of your signs out through that Chatter Valley Road, and Michigan Avenue, and Hancock Road, and York Road.
I've been out all through that. I've been up to River Road, and I've been down to Buck's Pocket, and pretty much everywhere in between. And so I personally delivered about 500 signs now, which has been great. And I really, it's a humbling thing to run for office, to see so many good people stand behind you and support you.
There's one road that we go on. I forget what the name of the road is, but it's covered with trees and limbs, and it's a road people don't go on. And there is a big 2-post banner thing, Clay Collins. And I was thinking while I was riding yesterday, I thought, now I wonder what the association is with these people out here and you. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, most time if someone wants a sign, I put a sign up, and was it Old Tassos Road maybe? Somewhere in there?
It was.
Well, I mean, we try to put the big ones where they're pretty good.
Well,
maybe I would put it there just for your ride,
Well, no, it was obvious that this person had requested your sign. It was sitting in a place that was like that. It was like I can't think of, we 44 miles, you're everywhere.
Right, yeah, you're going everywhere.
But it was what it struck me, because there's a lot of your signs out. But with this one was an unusual place, an unusual large sign. It just struck me as odd.
Yeah, I'm trying to think where that might be. But
like
I said, when you put up 500, could be. I've gone down dirt roads, and I learned you don't go down dirt roads after, because I've been delivering signs down in Buck's Pocket after about 6 o'clock. It's getting dark, and I was like, you don't do that. I'll go down there when it's light out. So.
Yeah, there's we're still even though we're great people, this is still East Tennessee.
Right. Yeah, and we can't be too careful. So I had a dog bite me down about a month ago, just nipped me. But I was like, all right.
We was out on up through Polk County, and this guy stopped, and it was almost an all-out brawl in the middle of the road, and I thought to myself, well, I'm not as sophisticated as I thought I was, as far as being I can get as rude as the rest of them,
right,
I guess.
Right. We like to think logic and reason are always going to dominate,
right.
But sometimes primal instinct takes over.
That reminds me of Spock, what you said on Star Trek. Spock didn't give any. He was half human and half Vulcan. Right. So at times he would start having some slight emotions because his mother right. was a.
I think my dad was a big Star Trek guy, but I know he was half. I don't know.
Yeah, his daddy was Vulcan, but his mother was human, and so every now and then he'd start feeling.
If he scowled, he'd be like, "Oh, I'm sorry."
Yeah, that was it. But the Vulcanism always overtook.
He'd probably be a good judge. Pretty calm. I mean, he's pretty calm.
That is the thing about a judge. And like I say, you're sort of the gatekeeper. Is this have enough balls and strikes?
Right. Is this enough to move on?
Yeah. And that's all.
Pretty much. And that's why you need a judge that's motivated to get it moving, because otherwise it'll just all sit here before it filters up.
Yeah, let's not try. If I'm hearing it right, let's not try this in Sessions Court. Let's try it somewhere else if it has the merits.
Right.
Let's get these people to where even if they're a criminal, let's at least give them peace of mind they're going to jail and not in limbo. And plus, if you got a real bad person out there, you don't want him sitting around for 4 years to do that same thing, do you?
No, and that's what's been happens here more than McMahon, Monroe, Polk, is right now there's a system, and as a prosecutor I filed motion to revoke in Bradley County hundreds of times, and they never got granted. Motion to revoke means if someone gets out on bond for a crime, and they should, you're innocent until proven guilty, but then you get go get another crime, get charged with another crime. In McMinn, Monroe, and Polk County, those judges in Sessions Court saying, okay, we're revoking your bond, you're going to jail, you can take it back up in criminal court, have a speedy trial in criminal court, but you're out of Sessions Court. You know, you're getting out on bond and breaking the law. But here in in Bradley County, what happens a lot is that we don't revoke bonds. The court doesn't revoke bonds. Like I said, I filed countless motions to revoke bonds. And I know my fellow prosecutors did as well, because someone gets out, drug dealer gets out on bond, goes and deals drugs again, gets out on bond, goes and deals drugs again. And so that's pretty much routine here. And by the time cases are getting to trial 4 years later, a lot of times, Joe Blow drug dealer is going to have 6 or 7 felonies. And it's crazy to think about. In a county as conservative as ours, that's happening. So that's another one of my campaign promises is, look, if you get out on bond, and then the proof is, to revoke bond, it has to be like preponderance of the evidence. So more likely than not is one of the. It has to be a higher level of evidence. But if that's there that you're breaking the law while you're out on bond, then you're going to jail. And you can have a speedy trial, but you're not going to keep getting out. And so like I said, I think all of that, if you have that rule, if you have the 3-month rule, we're going to see it get a lot better.
That'll solve a lot of that stuff.
And I have, because I was a prosecutor, police call me all the time over the last several years, say, look, I just caught, whoever this might be, dealing drugs last week. He got out of bond, he's dealing drugs again. I'm picking him up again. Can you file a motion to revoke? And that's just a frustration with them. So I've had tremendous support from law enforcement, because I think they see that problem with us not revoking bonds.
They would be the ones that know. They're there on
Right.
the front lines. They see it, and they know that sort of stuff.
They do.
And we don't need to be wasting their time doing all that
Right.
stuff.
And they're frustrated too, because they'll come to court, sit all day, and then have the case continued.
And we're paying them to sit in court,
Right.
I guess.
They are getting paid to sit in court, but they don't want it. No one, no one really wants to be in court. That's kind of a rule of court. They'd rather be, because they'll come in for night shift. They're on night shift. They'll come in at 9 o'clock, sit till 4 or 5 o'clock, and be said, "Hey, the case got continued. Sorry."
And the kids had a ball game.
Right.
And they
they're
couldn't
missing
go
time.
because they're sitting in court.
Right. And so that's my rule too. Is when we have the victim cases, I want a victim row and have every victim sit there and go through every one of those cases and get them out of there. And then you turn and say, okay, what officers are here? What cases are they here for? We're doing those cases next. This wait and see kind of attitude we have right now, it's making people not want to come to court. It's like the guy I told you with the bad check. He said, look, I don't even know if I'll come to court next time because I'm just done with it. And that's a bad attitude to have from a victim, that they feel like they're being re-victimized going to court.
It's almost Franz Kafka. He's similar, went through that same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the limbo.
He could in limbo. He didn't even know what he did.
Right. We just need to have hard and fast rules, and that's what I want to bring. That's my goal. So
You're the man.
I appreciate it.
Good luck.
Yeah.
I really
Yes, sir.
wish you luck.
I appreciate it.